Okay, so I think both of our speakers have prepared a little statement, so we'll go to each of you in turn, maybe a few questions digging a little bit deeper into this. So perhaps, Roberto, I can come to you first for your reflections.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. First of all, thanks for the invitation. I'm replacing my colleague. I hope not to be too much out of the scope. As an introduction, let me recall the quality and the reliability of food produced in Europe. We have achieved a great level of food security as proven during COVID pandemic. Our food production is modern, safe, but also diversified and quality oriented. There are important issues we need to address. Recently, we speak mostly about sustainability as a key challenge for the future. In this discussion, we must always keep in mind the three pillars: environmental, but also social and economic. Maybe it is obvious, but often omitted, and the more emphasis we put on the first one, the environment, but the more we risk neglecting the other two, and the more we risk to maybe obtain a very clean and pleasant to live world, but desertified. Recently, the policy debate at the EU level has been focusing a lot on the environment, which led to concern about food affordability. We also need to seriously consider the protection of our domestic food production as a fundamental strategic objective. The fact that we can make safe, nutritious food in Europe should never be taken for granted. Moving to action that are needed in the EU policies for the future, first I would like to share some general reflection. Considering the pivotal role of the food sector in delivering on the green ambition, I want to stress that achieving more sustainable food system is a shared responsibility of all participants in the value chain. And I'm happy to have as an audience the entire value chain today. Farmers, but also, and even most, all the processors, retailers, and consumers. Any policy department must fully take account on the full range of these stakeholders. And that's why I'm happy to be here, because the main message that I would like to convey to you is help us to help you to better shape our policy and our legislation. In particular, the industry needs to play its part as having more capital and better access to capital that is needed for investment and transition. Consumers' role is also fundamental in giving a strong signal on the demand side and unlocking the full power of market. Education and awareness raising can help consumers make better choice in everyday grocery shopping. And let me open a parenthesis. I think our policy and regulation on promotion is not as important in terms of how much we deliver on this policy, but it's important in how much we can educate in shaping the promotion, the consumer decision, and final choice. We also need to engage with international partners to ensure level playing field and avoid exporting our pollution to third country. So we have to be careful about the FDA prescription, just to be able to not issue some very strict legislation in order to protect our environment and the safety of our food, and then leave some other products without the same level of safety coming through our continent. So we have to be more effective also in trying to spread the way to cultivate and to produce food in a more sustainable way, also outside Europe. But these are topics outside of the agricultural policy. So I would like to say a few words about the role and the achievement of the policy I'm dealing with. Common agriculture policy. We have been supporting more resilient, innovative and sustainable farming for a long time. The Green Deal and Farm to Fork strategy simply gave a new impetus and help channel funding. In the last CAP reform, which is operational on the ground since this last January, significant budget is earmarked for environment and climate-related measures. It amounts at least 25% under the direct payments and 35% under the second pillar. We have a broad range of voluntary measures that farmers can choose. They can consist of farming practices which are either annual or implemented over several years. They can relate to carbon sequestration reduction in the use of inputs or increasing animal welfare. We also support investment where new installation, innovation, and technology can help improve the performance of farm. Limit the use of water, energy, for example, financing the machinery needed for precision farming. And there are also investment planned outside the farm, gates which, for example, contribute to a short supply chain by developing local processing or more generally better infrastructure in rural areas, which are, from our perspective, very important because we have to preserve rural areas. We have to help the rural areas not to be desertified, and in this way we can also prevent climatic disasters like flooding that we unfortunately experienced very recently. This policy cycle only kicked off at the beginning of this year, so we haven't got any data or stats to provide you, but we are looking at all the numbers that are arriving carefully just to be able to support the possible modification of the strategic plans for the 28 strategic plans. And I'm saying 28 not because UK is still with us, but because my colleague on the stage knows quite well there was a sort of exception for Belgium. And we need a fact-based decision and discussion just to shape the future CAP. That's why Ursula von der Leyen launched the political dialogue among farmers, just to collect all the infos that we need to provide a better shaped CAP for the future programming plan. Of course, your contribution is one of the most important part, because you represent a lot of actors that are playing important roles in the filiera. So again, my recall is, let's try to do this kind of dialogue more often, because it's only from this kind of dialogue that we can shape the best solution or better solution that in absence of this kind of dialogue. Two main messages and then I leave the floor. The first one, we would like to increase the budget of the next CAP. It will not be easy because, as you know, money is a limited sources. We study economics because of that. But I wanted to stress, and I profit of the presence of Natasha, to call another conference that she happened to moderate, the financial instruments one. I think we have to think more carefully also to some other sources of financing, not just the grants, but also the loans, like the RRF has taught to us. We have to educate the farmers, first of all, but all the actors in the filiera to better use the various possibility, including the financial instruments. EIB is providing a ring-fenced chapter or envelope dedicated to agriculture in providing guarantee funds or loans at a cost quite less than the market. So let's try to put together all the sources and let's try to help each other in reaching the best result.
Thank you very much for that, Roberto. Okay, Linz, let me come to you now. The Belgian presidency, as we've said, as I've mentioned, is going to fall at a pretty crucial time. It's going to take us into the European elections. Lots going on. Maybe a short. I know you prepared a statement, but a statement from you about how Belgium will rise to this challenge and the priorities maybe that you're looking forward to this presidency.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I think if there is one member state that proves to be able to tackle such issues, then it will be Belgium, I guess. But it's true, it's a very specific context. The first semester of 2024, we have not only European elections in June, but also regional and federal elections in Belgium, and afterwards in October we also have regional and province elections. And then afterwards in November, of course, a new European Commission, so it will be a challenging year for a council presidency to close files and issues. But that's, to summarize, maybe the first priority we have as a presidency, and that is to close as many files as possible. That is, in general, also a formal duty. So that's the main thing we will start with in January. We unfortunately only have something more than 1 month to close trilogues. I think our internal deadline is somewhere between the 1st and the 2nd week of February. So that will be a big challenge to close those files in time. Apart from this more formal role in trilogues and the legislation, we also have to play a role of course, in the international level, multilateral representation of the Council. But afterwards, after this, let's say, trilogue deadline in February, we will also have the opportunity to set some priorities on the EU agenda, Belgian priorities for the Flanders region, where I am the representative of. And we focused our priorities mainly, if we look to the Flanders region, specifically in 3 main lines. And the first one is important at an EIT conference, I think. We want to work towards a European food policy. We want to stimulate systemic changes, systemic food policy, and we want to do that with a more holistic approach. We also proved that in our own food strategy, which we published in November 2022, almost 1 year ago, an holistic approach where we also invited a very big group of, I think, 30 members of the sector, from universities, from companies, from governments. So we wanted to have a big base to start with this food policy, which we presented already 1 year ago. And we want to take the same approach into our presidency. We want to use that approach also to give a best practice, to give good examples for other member states, and to really involve all players in the food sector. So that's one main line. The second one is sustainability in general, and we see it in 3 pillars, not only ecologically but also economically and socially. I think those 3 go hand in hand. if we want to go for sustainable food sector and food system in general. And we also want to go for a more sustainable food production. In general, I think it's important that we share costs and risks throughout the chain, also in a more holistic manner. And also we want to also focus a little bit more on demand side of the market, and we want to involve consumer patterns in the whole story. I think that's an important point. The third one is innovation. The third main line is innovation for our region. It's a very important topic which we try to involve in a lot of policy areas, not only agriculture and food, but also in a broader sense. And we want to work on those three main topics, not only through the formal council meetings and the formal council working parties, but also through a few events we want to organize. We will kick off our presidency with a symposium on the future of agriculture in the EU. It will be the 1st of February. There we want to, with this symposium, go for a more academic view, because we hear a lot of different positions and views from the sector itself, also politically. But we want to go a little bit back to the base. Want to go back to a more academic view. What is possible with the future of agriculture in our European Union. So that will be the kickoff, let's say, of our presidency. And a few weeks later, in mid-March, we will organize an open food conference, and that will be one of our main events during our presidency, and a 3-day event, by the way, where we will involve all different stakeholders, and we want to make it as broad as possible. So there will be a lot of people, we hope so. And there we want not only a broad scope and a broad audience, but also a broad sense of how we're going to discuss these topics. We're going to do workshops, plenary sessions, field visits as well, all included, to, I think, in general, 27 themes we want to tackle in 3 days. So it will be a really ambitious program there. But yeah, we're convinced that it's necessary in order to give this holistic approach a chance to organize it in such a broad sense. A third event from our federal colleagues is also a symposium on Nutri score. We thought if the legislation on labeling is not coming forward, we are organizing a symposium ourselves. So that's one of our federal colleagues about the Nutri score, which will be in the same lines I already explained, with the same background to discuss some topics in that area. And apart from our 2 informal councils, one for agriculture and one for fisheries, where we will also focus on food autonomy in the EU, I think those 3 are the main events which will tackle food policy, food systems, and so on. I think that's a summary of what we are planning to do the next few months, starting in January.
Sounds like you're going to be busy.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, well, some key dates there for the EIT food community to keep in your diary. Well, thank you very much, both of our speakers. That was an excellent look back and also a look forward at what is to come. This brings this part of this session to a close. I'd like to thank you both very much and invite you to take a seat back in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.